Hello, my name is Xander. Welcome to my channel in YouTube. Today, let's talk about the thinking. I wish I could dance, but I can't. And you really don't want me to. So instead, I thought I would like to talk a little today about how people think. I'm fascinated by this question. I'm a social psychological, and which basically means I'm a professional people watcher. So this is what I do. I try to figure out how people think and how we might be able to think better. Here's something I noticed a few years ago about how I seem to think. Here's a typical week in my day, which really seems to resolve the entire life. So here I am, a maximum of my artistic abilities of sick figure, going along the baseline, and a paper gets accepted. I get this rush by flip a business, and then I'm back to baseline. A few days later, a paper might get rejected, and that feels bad, and I wait for that belief to end. But somehow I just can't stop thinking about it. Here's the craziest part. Even if another paper gets accepted the next day, well, that's nice. But somehow I can't get the past rejection out of my head. So what's going on here? Why does a failure seem to stick in our minds so much longer than the success? Together with my colleague in the political science department, I started thinking about this question. This question of, do our minds get stuck in the negatives? We all know intuitively that there are different ways of thinking about things. The same glass can be seen as half full or half empty. There's a lot of research in the social science showing that depends on how you describe the glasses to people. As half full, yeah, it changes how they feel about it. If you describe the glass as half full, this is called because you are focusing on what's gained, then people like it. But if you describe the same glass as half empty, then people don't like it. So when does that happen? You try to switch from thinking about it one way and thinking about it another way. Can people stick back and forth? Or they get stuck in one way of thinking about them? Does one of these labels, in other words, tend to stick more in mind? Well, to investigate this question, we conducted a simple experiment. We told partnerships in our experiment about a new surgical situation, and we randomly assigned them in one or two conditions. For participants in the first condition, the first group, we described the surgical procedure in terms. We said it had 16% success. For participants in second, we described the procedure in terms of losses. We said it has 30% failure. So it's the exact same procedure. We just focus in people's attention on the part of glass that's empty. Perhaps unsurprisingly, people like the procedure when it's described as having a 70% success, and they don't like it when it's described as having 30% failure. But then we added a twist. We told participants in the first group, you could think of this as 30 failure. And now they don't like it anymore, and they've changed their minds. We told participants in the second group, you could think of this 30% success, but unlike this first group and stuck their initial opinion. They seem to be stuck in the initial loss frame and beginning, not starting. We conducted another experiment. This time we told participants about the current governor of an incident who is running reaction. We again had two groups of participants, and we described the current governor's track record to them in one or two ways. We said that the current governor took office, state you just discussed it expected about 10,000 jobs, and then half of the participants read that number and current governor's leadership. 40 of these jobs had been saved. They like the current governor. They think it's doing a great job. The rest of participants read that under the current governor's leadership, 60% of these jobs been lost, and they don't like the current governor, so they think they do a terrible job. But then, once more, we added taste. For participants in the first group, we reformed the information in terms of losses. And now they didn't like the current governor anymore. For participants in the second group, we reframed the information in terms of gains. But just like in the first study, they didn't seem to better. People in group still don't like the current governor. So notice what this means. Once the loss frame gets in there, it stucks. People can't go back to thinking about job saved once they thought about job lost. So in both of these serious conditions, the current governor gets outside in favor of his opponent. At this point, we were getting curious. Why does this happen? Could it be that's actually mentioned harder for people to convert from losses to gains than it is for them to go from gains to losses? So we conducted a third study to test how easily people could convert from one firm to another. This time we told participants, imagine there's been an outbreak, 600 lives at stake. We asked participants in one group, if 100 lives are saved, how many will be lost? And we asked participants in another group, if 100 lives lost, how many will be saved? So everyone just have to calculate. 600, 100 equals 500. But whereas people have to convert from gains to losses, in order to do that, people in the second group have to convert from losses to gains. We timed how long it took them to solve this simple math problem. So what we found was that when people had to convert from gains to losses, they could solve the problem quite easily. It took them about 7 seconds on average. But when they have to convert from losses to gains, well, now it takes far longer, almost 7 seconds. So let's suggest that once we think about something lost, that way of thinking about it tends to stick in mind and react to change it. What I take away from this research and from related research is that our view of the world had a fundamental tendency to tilt forward the negative. It's pretty easy to go from good to bad, but far forward to shift from bad to good. We literally have to work harder to see the upside of the good. And this matters. So think about the economy. Here's economic well-being from 2007 to 2010. You can see it tangled, just like we're all good, and then by rate 2010 by most objective measures. But here's consumer confidence over the same time period. You can see it tanks right along with the economy, but then it seems to get stuck. Instead of rebounding with the economy, members seem to be psychologically stuck back there in the recession. So oddly then, it took more effort to change about how the economy is doing then, to change the economy itself. Once the more personal level, what this means to be is that you have to work to see the upside. Literally, this takes work, this takes effort. And you can practice, you can train your mind to do this better. There's research out showing that just writing a few minutes each day about things that you're grateful can dramatically boost your happiness and well-being, and even your health. We can also rehearse good news and share with others. We tend to think, right, that misery loves company, that venturing will help get rid of our negative, that will help you better. We just talk about how terrible our minds. So we talk and we talk and we talk about maybe who driving us crazy and that who never called us back and that meeting at work where every little thing that could go wrong did, but we forget to talk about the good stuff. And yet, that's exactly where our minds need to mostly practice. So, somebody who has this man of listening what I see out there, and then pointing out, technically speaking, I'm person too. Yes. Taking to listen to me about 2 minutes of days when I come home all nappy and grumpy, complaining, he listens and he says, okay, what happened today that was good? And I tell about who came up after class with this really interesting, insightful question. And I tell him about the friend who emailed me out of the blue this morning just to say hello. And somewhere in the telling, I start to smile. And I start to think that maybe my day was pretty decent after all. I think we can also work in our communities to focus on the upside. We can be more aware that bad tends to stick. One mean comment stick with somebody all day, all week even. And bad tends to progress. Somebody snaps at you and you snap back. And you snap at next guy too. But what if the next time somebody snaps at you, you forgive them? What if the next time you had a really grumpy waitress, you left her extra lip? Our minds may be built to look for the negative information and to hold on to it. But we can also restrain, put some effort into it, and start to see that the glass may be a little more full than we initially thought. Thank you. This is Xander. Please subscribe my channel.